Welcome back to Is It Still Good, the channel where we watch older films and let you know if they still hold up. Today, we're going to talk about a hyper-masculine film that barely made my cutoff of 2007 and before, 300. But first, let's try to sell you guys my books. And we're back. Okay, hopefully you guys bought some of my books. They're fantasy fiction, a lot of fun. You're gonna laugh, you're gonna cry. 300, starring Gerard Butler, came out in 2006, just barely making the 2007 cutoff. Rated R, runs 1 hour 57 minutes, and this one was directed by Zack Snyder, and it stars Gerard Butler, like I said, Lena Headey, and David Wenham. Yeah, this one's got an eclectic cast, most notably kind of the start of Michael Fassbender and some other people. But this movie is super, super manly. I mean, this gives Predator 1 a run for its money. And basically, the Battle of Thermopylae in 480 BC, an alliance of Greek city-states fought the invading Persian army in the mountain pass of Thermopylae. Vastly outnumbered, the Greeks held back the enemy in one of the most famous last stands in history. Persian King Xerxes led an army of well over 100,000 and was confronted by only 300 Spartans, 700 Thespians, and 400 Thebans. Xerxes waited for 10 days for King Leonidas to surrender or withdraw, but was left with no options. He pushed forward. After 3 days of battle, all the Greeks were killed. The Spartan defeat was not the one expected, though, as a local shepherd named Ephialtes defected to the Persian side and informed Xerxes that a separate path through Thermopylae, which the Persians could use to outflank the Greeks, was not as heavily guarded as they thought. So that's kind of how it came to an end, but the Spartans beat the snot out of the Persians for so long that their stand is legendary and, firmly embedded in our culture. Now, this movie is hyper-stylized and was based on the graphic novel written by one of my favorite writers ever, Frank Miller, who wrote some awesome stuff, most notably The Dark Knight Returns, a Batman story, my favorite Batman story of all time, and has been animated in a 2-part film series. Highly recommend you watch that. Probably the coolest Batman story I can think of. And that's my boy Frank Miller. This guy can write. He wrote Sin City. And this movie will evoke images of Sin City to you in that it is hyper stylized. Like I said, everything's shot in a kind of, high contrast sepia tone with like a monochrome element to it. So like the reds usually pop of like the Spartan capes and so on. And this movie kind of made us all feel like bums when it came out, as far as those of us who lift weights, because everybody's so yoked in this movie. It's so funny. Even the old guys are jacked. And it evoked themes of, what it's like to be a protector and self-sacrifice and both positive and negative aspects of hypermasculinity. And so you may get that out of it. If you're into violent films, if you're into that kind of hypermasculine vibe or whatever, you're going to love this movie. I mean, it's a great movie for that. But across the board, I have to be objective about it. Now, IMDb rates this one as 7.6 out of 10. And I would have to agree. I give this a 7.5 out of 10. Because I don't do 0.6s. But yeah, 7.5 out of 10 I think is fair. And that's kind of given wiggle room because this film could trigger some people in certain ways. They could not like it in certain ways, given our current societal climate and so on. But if you're cool with all that stuff and you can watch this like you really love Predator 1, then you're going to love 300. Period. It's just really cool looking. And if you have a muscle fetish, it's right up your alley, right? Soundtrack is pretty badass too. And upon a rewatch, I was really happy with just the way this held up in its looks. The effects are dated, but they're not bad. Everything looks really good. And you've probably seen 10 million memes about this film. Very famous movie. Often spoken of and talked about in the zeitgeist of pop culture. And with good reason. The imagery stays with you, and it is very, very memorable if nothing else. So I would say 300 is definitely worth a watch. I give it a 7.5 out of 10. I think that's very fair. Let me know in the comments what you think of 300. Let's get this going. I'm wondering what you guys think of this movie. I like it. Always like 300. It holds up for me. Still had fun with it. What do you think? So anyway, that's it for me, and I will see you guys next time on Is It Still Good?